Thank God it's Friday, coming to you live from Columbus, Ohio, MFGMonkey, episode 4. Let's get this party started.
Awesome. Well, welcome, Bryan. We have Bryan Driscoll here. We've known each other for quite a while. What, 10 years or so?
It's been at least 10 years.
Yeah.
It seems like a lifetime.
My face.
Seems like a lifetime ago for me.
No, but it's been fun. My first interaction with you, you invited me to go work out with you. You remember this?
I do not.
And I thought I was going to die. We did Fran.
Oh, that's right.
And I think I made it through like a round and a half of Fran. And
that's exactly
literally
right.
thought I was going to puke. So thank you for that.
You know, it's funny you bring that up. Guy that I worked with for years at a place called Eagle Creek. I helped start a beautiful 50-acre retreat center north of the Columbus Zoo a long time ago. This is early 90s. And this guy was an old wrestler, and I was looking for help at this place called Eagle Creek. And we did a lot of outward bound experiential-based learning programs. And to this day, he reminds me that I had him come in, and we were wrestling in the morning as part of the interview process.
Yeah.
Still trained him back then, a long time ago. So,
no, but that's the fun stuff, you know? So I actually went on and did quite a bit of CrossFit and that after that. So you kind of inspired me to do that. And then I hurt myself like every other CrossFitter does. So I'm kind of off the wagon, but, you know, but yeah, it's been fun. I think one of the first things that you were doing with us was just education and some calling, and we had, what's the girl that works with you that does the
stay-at-home moms program?
The stay-at-home moms program, yeah.
Yeah, she's been great. We've had multiple moms over the years, and we've had a handful come and go for sure.
Yeah, cool. Well, tell everyone what your website is so they can find you.
Yeah, well, it's www.driscolllearning.com, and Driscoll is my last name, Driscoll Learning.com.
Awesome.
3 L's in the middle there.
Perfect. And when we get this launched up on our website, McMillanCo.mfg.com, we'll have a link to you and have a link in the podcast as well, so people will be able to find you.
All right.
So
Awesome. So, Bryan, thank you for joining us today. Tell us a little bit more about yourself. I know you guys already kind of talked about one of the programs that you work with, but I know you do a ton of things when it comes to learning. And tell us about Driscoll Learning and you being the president and the founder as well.
Yeah, I'll try to keep this brief because we've been in business now for over 20 years. Somebody just reminded that to me just recently. I've totally forgot about it. Just kind of keep the years keep melding together.
Yeah, that's
but
crazy.
we started in 1997 or 98. And one of my mentors, a guy by the name of Tom Suttis, we built this place called Eagle Creek, which I already mentioned, and doing outward bound type training, high ropes courses, climbing walls, adventure type training, team building programs. And Tom, what he probably did for me was instill this entrepreneurial spirit. So I went out and hung my own shingle, had one client worth a couple of bucks, 4 kids, full-time stay-at-home mom. I came home and told my wife that, hey, I'm gonna start my own company. She goes, okay. And in some ways, the business plan was I had a mortgage, 4 kids to feed, a wife that wanted to eat every once in a while as well. That was my business plan. I got to make this much money and a few bucks more. Since then, it's matured. We still do team development work, but we've added a leadership development component to the program. Then we've started adding more around assessments and sales training as well. But at the end of the day, at the core of the business is the assessment work and job benchmarking. Okay. Getting some clarity around the hiring process, get some clarity around what you're really looking for in a candidate or a prospect that you're going to bring on board.
Yep.
And the clients that we work with, the ones that seem to get the most return on investment from a learning standpoint or a training and development standpoint, are the ones that are ruthless in their selection and hiring process, and using benchmarking to get some clarity around the hiring process. Using assessments as part of the process, whether it be me or somebody else, even in some cases. But they're ruthless about getting the person the right fit. Now, what does that mean? I don't believe there's bad people. It's just about fit.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
How someone's wired.
Yeah, and getting the right person, the right culture, and the right environment that's going to connect with their manager, the organization, the culture, et cetera. Just had a tough conversation with a client the other day where he's looking to hire somebody that looks a certain way, a certain profile, and the person that he was looking to bring on board, great person, But I'm like, she's going to last about 6 months because it's trying to put a square peg in a round hole for what the job required. And so that's the tough part. That's the tough part, getting that clarity around what you're truly looking for in a job. And then the learning can take place later on. If you got the right person, the training and development work is much easier, much easier.
Would you say like that open conversation at first with the leader, the boss, is probably tough too? You know what I mean? Them kind of biting a piece of humble pie and understanding that what they want might not be the right thing.
Oh, absolutely. And I think as I get older, or just old, one of the two, you start to become a little bit more aggressive and just being very candid and going, look, we had an example. There's a client right down the street here that looking to hire an engineer, and we did some benchmarking with them, and they had classified 2 types of engineers: an engine bro and an engine nerd. And an engine bro, you kind of get that word. Like an engine bro is somebody that, hey, fun to have beers with after 5, and just kind of that cool guy. And there's a certain style or a profile that might look like somebody you want to hire. Engine nerd, a little more introverted, more blocking and tackling, looking at blueprints all day. And their benchmark came back saying, hey, we definitely need an engine nerd. Everything, all the indicators said you need this certain person. So fast forward, one of our recruiters identified 2 engineers, one that was an engine bro, one was an engine nerd. So I'm looking at them on paper, and I go, okay, they really need the engine nerd, not the engine bro, based on the research we did for them. And we walk in, and guess what they said? Oh, we like the engine bro. We want to hire that guy.
Right.
I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah.
I says, you told me you needed an engine nerd. You went through the process with me. You said you want to hire the engine bro. I'm obviously not charging you enough money to make the recommendation. So fast forward, they hired the engine nerd. He's been there about a year or 18 months now, and things seem to be working out great.
That's awesome.
So
I'm still stuck on the engine nerd versus the engine bro. And it's so true. And even, the different types of engineers have so many different personalities, and we see it in our line of work, and it is really helpful when you understand that personality profile, how you work with them.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you're going in to talk to an engine bro and you're talking to an engine nerd, you're just never going to be on the same page. And we see both, especially with electrical engineers. And their personality is way different than a mechanical engineer.
Sure.
And it's really understanding those personality types, which the DISC profile that you do, and you've done it for us I've done it, Dan's done it, you've done it for quite a few of our folks, where it helps you as a leader understand their personality as well. So you can tone it down, like my personality type. I can tone it down and help coach somebody on how they need to be coached, and you don't bowl over them.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, and it was unbelievably accurate too, because when I took it and I sent it to Dustin, I was like, I got nothing. This thing
scary.
is perfect. I'm an ninja bro.
Well, you might just be the bro.
That's it.
Hey, full disclosure, because I know this is going to be public. Behavior style DISC is one science.
Yep.
And when we're helping somebody hire somebody, that's only one of up to 4 or 5 that we'll look at to get a more
Different
comprehensive.
metrics.
Yeah, because it's not enough. As a matter of fact, when somebody says, hey, I want to run a DISC assessment to hire somebody, if that's all they want, I don't help them. I says, look, guys, it's just too limiting. Well, granted, it tells a lot.
Tell us about the other ones then.
Well, you've got a behavioral assessment.
Okay.
DISC has become kind of the Kleenex of the assessment industry. If you say you get to tissue, you say Kleenex. And Kleenex become that generic term that we refer to as Kleenex or tissue. But DISC is a behavioral assessment. There's many of them out in the marketplace. It's one piece of the puzzle, but it's not the whole puzzle.
Okay.
It doesn't get at what juices or energizes somebody per se. There's more to it, and that's what we call driving forces. So what's a motivator for somebody to do something? Mm-hmm. If someone said, hey, Bryan, you can only run one assessment of all the ones that we have, and right now we probably have up to 10 that we run, different ones. But the one that I would run is the driving forces. I want to know what juices somebody.
Right. So what do you look for in an engineer versus a salesperson?
So again, depending on the environment, that engineer, there's more moving parts. But when you bring up sales, our research company, we work with a global assessment partner called Target Trading International. They're based out of Scottsdale. I was just out there last week. It was beautiful weather out there in Scottsdale, and I was out there in January and March. But the sales side, we do have research to reveal there are certain indicators. We call it a resourceful metric, or measure utility. And on one side, you have somebody who's resourceful, somebody who expects return on investment for their time spent. And that is a very strong indicator of somebody's success in the game called sales. Now, it's not the only indicator, but it is definitely one that we look for.
Okay.
So that's an easy one to look to, and it's an indicator when we look at an assessment.
Right.
We'll look at things around their competency performance, what soft skill mastery they have as far as soft skills go. There's another science we use called the Hartman profile that gets at what's really going on inside their head, and how they're responding to the world out there right now, and how clearly they see things, and how they process information. Also, how they're responding to the world outside with others as well. So there's a lot of moving parts in there. But again, all EEOC compliant and meets those metrics that we must require. So if there's any HR people listening, that's really important. So if you're using assessments in the hiring process,
cool.
Make sure you meet all those legal issues.
So it's all handwritten now, right?
Yeah, it's all handwritten. Yeah,
and you grade them and you figure it out.
Yeah,
on your own.
exactly.
So, and I'm kind of being facetious, but tell people about the process, because it is pretty cool, because you do log in and it is a test. I can't remember if it's timed or not.
We measure.
There's really no pass fail, but
no. Well, yeah. So there's two ways. I mean, if you benchmark a job and you have what's called True North, it's a piece of the process. It's not the only process. And when we start using assessments, we got to be careful, because we're playing with people's careers, right? We're playing with their income and their livelihood, et cetera. And when I do that, I take a lot of responsibility to say, look, I'm basically a divorce counselor or a marriage counselor. Obviously you're going to make a commitment to an organization. The organization is making a commitment to you. I want to make sure that everybody's going into this thing eyes wide open to make sure that there's a lot of clarity around what's expected.
Sure.
Is there the right fit? If there's something that's maybe a gap, when do we address it? How do we address it? It's tied to development plans on the back end. So, and again, that word test, I try to beat that out of our clients. And guys, it's not a test. It's a questionnaire. It's giving intel about an individual. Right. And it's a third of the process. So when an organization says, okay, we want to use assessments as part of their hiring process, there's the blocking and tackling of HR. Have you done background checks? Have you done all the upfront stuff in the role? Have you done some type of behavior-based interviewing? And then the assessment should be the piece that validates what you heard in the interview process. It should either validate or disprove what you've heard in the process.
Right.
The key there, though, is a lot of times behavior-based interviewing, it's not tied to the assessment. With a benchmark, you could say, okay, great, here's some questions we need to be asking. Let's see what they said in the interview to see if they should actually take the questionnaire to complete the assessment.
Right.
So by the time they get to me and they complete that assessment, obviously done electronically, I send the link, and then now I'm looking at that assessment. I want to see people on paper before I see them in person. Why? Because we all have bias. We all have bias, and bias absolutely interferes in the process, whether we like it or not. As soon as you meet somebody, bias enters the picture.
Right.
So when I look at somebody on paper, I can objectively look at them and say, here's what I'm seeing. Here are their gifts. The good news is everybody has gifts.
Right.
The bad news is everybody doesn't have all of them.
Right.
And say, how do we play to these gifts in the role that they're going to play on?
So your interview process, you would do a phone interview, and then if they get past that screening process, then would you move immediately into doing an assessment, or what does your process look like?
It varies per client, but the client usually gets me involved on the back end.
Okay.
And depending on the size and scope of the client. So some organizations are smaller to mid-size where I'm very involved in that process. And it'll be like, okay, great, we've interviewed them. We've done all the front end work. We've done some interviews. We talked to 10 people. We have 2 or 3 that are in the final bake-off. And we want to run an assessment on those 2 or 3.
Okay.
And then we could do some comparison reports and see what that person has against maybe a benchmark, or at least the gifts that person has.
I gotcha.
The flip side is for large organizations where they're saying, hey, we need this in multiple languages. We have an international footprint. We have the ability to scale to that level and put it at the front end of the funnel and say, okay, great, we have 100 people entering our interview process and doing it on the back end. So that's a different process altogether, a lot more moving parts, but that gets into a whole nother, probably not relevant for this conversation, but that's a whole other equation that we have the capabilities to do, where We have clients who run in 600 reports in a month.
Yeah.
But we're looking at numbers and seeing who's best fit.
Right. Well, and speaking of relevance to the conversation, we always encourage people to reach out and give us feedback. So even, with this, whoever's listening, reach out, give us feedback. And if there's something that people want to talk about more, or want to hear more about, then we can do it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that that's the fun part about this is we kind of just throw some stuff out there that we think people will find valuable because we're passionate about it. You are. And then we get feedback and we can do a follow-up, in so many months or whatnot. So,
yeah, for sure. And we have benchmarking webinars. We have introductions to certifying HR professionals and coaches and internal trainers for companies who want to use the assessments without me involved.
Well,
so we have that capability.
You do a great newsletter too. So tell everyone how, if they want to sign up for the newsletter, how to get in touch with you so they get that newsletter.
So send an email to Bryan@DriscollLearning.com. Bryan with a Y. My last name, Driscoll, Driscoll, learning.com.
Perfect. And we'll let Dan get us back on track.
No, to be honest with you guys, this has
think
been great dialogue, and actually you've been hitting on some of the topics that I've already had, so I was letting it go. It was smooth, and I'm enjoying listening to you, so more than anything, it's getting better and better. But 20 years is a long time, and what you've been doing, and it's been a lot of change in 20 years. So how have you been able to adapt? I mean, I'm thinking 20 years ago, when I was 20 years ago, you didn't really use cell phones and computers and those things as much as we do now. And now it's like you have to have it. So how have you been able to adjust with the times? And also, what's something that you started with that you still use and you're like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm using that no matter what.
Right. Well, here's you hit on something that I use this in my programs. Back in the 90s, when I was doing team building programs, the number one reason why people would call us is we need to improve our communication, right? That's a big buzzword, team building communication. And then around late 90s, getting into 2000, hey, Bryan, technology's taken over. You better find another line of work. Computers are going to do all that training. You're going to be a dinosaur. So fast forward, it's 2020, and guess what the number one reason why people are still calling me?
Communication.
It hasn't changed.
Right. Same thing with divorce counselors. I'm sure it's the same thing.
That's right. So. That's right. And because people are still people. Yes. Now, what is, there's a, I might mispronounce her name, but there's a book out there by Kuzi and Posner that wrote a book on the attributes that people want out of an admired leader. Supposedly they're coming out with a version 2.0 of this book. But one of the things that people see in an admired leader is they want honesty.
Right.
Right. And today, when I do some of this discussion about this book and the attributes, people say, well, where's transparency? And the word transparency is not in any of these attributes that they measured in 80,000 data points around the world and researching what people want, and honesty is one of the top 4, but transparency is not in there. I said, well, what are we talking about when we talk about transparency? What are we really talking about? Honesty.
Right.
It's just a sexy new cool word to get to the same thing. And this might be my cynical, jaded side coming out as I get close to 54 years of age. So that's one thing that I see is that there's still the human element, the human touch. And we still talk about connecting with others and the ability to be real and genuine and connect, build a little more tolerance and grace in the workplace. Now, the methods and means by which the learner is embracing material and content has absolutely changed. Learning and development people have some real good research around what really creates stickability in a training program.
Right.
20 years ago, I could get away with just a team building program and have a great day, and people would be excited. Today, the expectation is, okay, we've done the experience, but what's the back-end support reinforcement? What's the e-learnings or the Learn platform that you're going to have online that's available to support that? What kind of other things that are available? And so that's where it's maturing is the application of technology, the coaching element that has really become really a hot topic to hold people accountable. Right. No different than going to the gym.
Right.
I was talking to a CIO of a large international steel company that's based here in Columbus just the other day, and he He says, yeah, I got to leave. I got to go to my Orange Theory class. And he says, they got it down, man. If I don't show up, they're going to ding me for $12. Now, if they were going to ding me for $9 for not showing up, I probably wouldn't show up. But it's 12, I'm going. and
That's awesome. I didn't know that they did that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I had to chuckle. And it's the same thing around training and development today with corporations. They expect a return on investment, but there's got to be a coach or some levers to go ahead and create stickability in the learning that's required to be successful in the job.
Yep.
That's a big part of it. Does that cover your question?
Yeah, no, it hit a lot of it. And I know Dustin's big on some of the things that always worked. Is we spoke about this before. He believes in the lunches and the dinners and meeting face to face, which did that in the '90s, and you do it now, and it still works. And even getting into how are you finding those people that are going to stay long term? You know what I mean? It's finding the initial fit, but how do you know that person's going to stick?
Well, there's the number one reason you may have great. One client comes to mind. They're an energy company. The culture's incredible, but they're ruthless in the hiring process. But what they've also done is created a great culture that people want to stay.
Right.
True story. I run some sales and training and development programs in this organization, and they want me to come there, but I'll bring other people from other organizations in as well. So I might have somebody in medical sales in there. I have somebody that sells robots. Actually, a company right down the street here sells robots. $500,000, $1 million piece of equipment in that room. And these other guys, they're selling gas. Mm-hmm. They're selling the stuff that keeps this place warm, right?
Right.
And so these people that came from one of the organizations came in, and they're in there. We're in there over 90 days. Every couple of weeks we get together for a development program. And the one guy cornered me, says, are all these people real? Because everybody's so happy around here, and the energy's incredible. And I says, yeah. He says, but man, I'll have to bottle some more of that up and take it back to our organization because we could use some of that. Now, it's a great company already, but he's like, man, the energy's incredible. I says, well, the guys, the young hotshots you see in that class, what do you think they do? I'm not sure. I think I'm learning as I get to know them. I says, they're banging that phone, making 20, 30, 40 dials a day looking for customers. That can be draining, right?
Yeah, right.
But because the company's done an incredible job of building a great culture, they stay. Yeah. They're ruthless in the hiring process. They get the best. I call them kids because they're my kids' age. But just that's a big part of it. So you've done a good job on the hiring thing, but what goes on with the manager they report to, and the culture of the organization that is constantly beating that drum about what their purpose is, their values, that's what keeps them.
So this is really interesting to me because I think when I first met you, I got hired to help change the culture. And it was an interesting time because it changing the culture was on my shoulders, right? But nobody else was bought in. Yeah. So, there's a few different terms that come to mind to explain what I was trying to do that we probably shouldn't use. But it's such a big thing to me is talking about culture. When I worked for a home builder, we had an amazing culture. And I'm still best friends with some of those people today. Actually, one of the girls that I worked with 10 years ago is going to do the interior design of our new office. Yeah. And we just stayed in contact. She moved to New York City for 10 years, but she still remains one of my really good friends. Same thing with Justin. I always talk about to all you guys. One of my best friends, I've known him for 12 years. We worked at the same place because the culture was so amazing. Right. And now having my own company, like I want that culture, and it just seemed to be, at the time, it just seemed to be natural. And it's like you didn't really have to work at it, but they were ruthless in the hiring process. Yeah. I mean, you met with 10 different people, you got interviewed,
there you go.
All these crazy questions, and at the time I'm like, what in the hell is going on here?
Yeah,
man?
yeah.
Why do I need to know this answer to this question?
Right.
But then when you get in there, you're like, oh, they're wanting, people that think alike, or people that actually, they get asked what I would think is a bullshit question, but they, they're like, okay, well, is this person actually going to think about the answer, or are they just going to make something up and blow it off?
Right.
So why don't, I'm interested to hear what you see makes a great, phenomenal culture.
Well, again, this is by me aging myself. In the 90s, there was a big buzz about articulating values, having a great mission statement, vision statement, and having all that articulated. And we would bring people to our retreat center, Eagle Creek. It's no longer around, but we would bring them out there, cool 50-acre retreat center. We had some cool buildings, and we'd hammer out this vision, mission, values, and those organizations would go back and put it on a stone in the lobby, and it'd be very long and elaborate, and they'd try to figure out where the word "the" should go in the sentence, and it would just kind of die there. It would be there, and they knew they should do it, but it didn't breathe any life into the culture, right? And so then on the coattails of that was the .com craze of early 2000s, and the only three that really made that, and what was the run there? The play, how to make cash, right?
Right.
So this vision and value surge in the early to mid 90s, then you've got this .com buzz, and so everybody's trying to make a play to do what? Profit and money. But if you think about it, how many companies have really made it? Google, Amazon, eBay.
Facebook.
Yeah, it was. And when did really Facebook come on?
Yeah, Facebook was after the big .com.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, late '90s, it was Amazon, and back then it was selling books. And I'm going, what are they? I made a mistake. I should have threw some money at that, but
right. But you're at the time, you're like, what the hell is this company doing?
Selling books.
Right.
Right.
Who's going to use that?
That's right. And so that so three have survived, right? So there was something about that. Just to stretch for the cash only is not enough for survival. Mm-hmm. And so, I can't speak to Google or Amazon or eBay's culture, but there was something about the mission that people bought into, drank the Kool-Aid. There's part strategy, part people, and just driving it. So now, fast forward, it's early 20s, and even myself, when I hung my own shingle, it was a lifestyle business.
Right.
Because I had 4 young kids, I wanted to be at their stuff. I didn't want necessarily the burden of employees. And so now we're in 2020, and we're like, well, wait a second. I got another, in my biased opinion, 15, 20 years of good energy left. And
your wife will disagree with that, I'm positive. She's going to want you home before 20 more years. Yeah.
But you say, okay, do we start bringing on people? And I've got some independent consultants we work with, and they pass in my again, this goes back to Tom Suttis at Eagle Creek, the Wichita test. Meaning, if we get stuck in Wichita where there's nothing going on because of a snowstorm, and we're stuck in the same hotel room for 3, 4, 5, 6 days, we're still buddies on the back end of that.
Right.
That was his hiring litmus test. Yeah, I was brought on with that kind of experience. But from as far as driving culture today, what I'm really starting to do more around or embrace, and from a coaching perspective, is that you've got to integrate the learning to really get clarity around the purpose of the organization. I wrote a tagline long time ago about creating engaging environments where learning is embraced. And I'm really being challenged about what even our purpose is. And I'm saying it's the same. I threw that out with some people out at TTI, Target Trade International, last week. I said, well, that's a great purpose. I threw 3 or 4 together. I said, that's us. Creating engaging environments where learning is embraced. Now, what does that mean? A lot of things, but that's the drive. So when that gets clear, then you get 2 or 3 core values. You can start to say, okay, how are we going to live those values and beat that drum with however big or small your organization is to get some traction. Then you go a little step deeper. Says, okay, that influences the culture that you create.
Right.
I just heard a steel company just speak. A guy that's a real humble guy at a Conway Family Business Center here in Columbus. Really powerful organization, all family held, privately held businesses. And I heard a guy speak just recently, and their big focus is around being customer centric, customer focused. It's the only thing left. And in meetings today, they'll have people speak up and say, okay, he's an example of a piece of metal that was done and didn't meet spec. And they said, well, we could probably patch that and drill the hole somewhere else, something along those lines. And somebody in the meeting said, well, is that the best thing we could do for the customer? And that's how you know you have stickability. It's ingrained that we're going to be that customer-centric piece.
Yep.
So that's the culture. Now, the ripple effect of that great culture is it permeates to the brand. Right. And so your customers start to feel the brand. You may articulate, they may know the brand that you're about, but they feel it.
Right.
And they want to do business with you.
Right.
And it absolutely affects great sales organizations today. It's not enough about having what to exactly say, but that buyer actually feels that you're committed to taking care of that customer.
Sure. No, I would have to agree with that. You know, I think culture is the most important thing about a company. I don't care what you're doing. You could be curing cancer or pounding nails in a 2x4 for a living. And if you don't have a good culture at your company, it's just not, it's not going to be sustainable. I don't think so. Or it's not going to be a fun place to work, and your turnover rate's going to be through the roof.
Well, you go a step further on that. I mentioned I have 4 part-time adults. Mm-hmm. I got a 21-year-old, a 23-year-old, a 25, 26, and they're just getting into the workforce.
Right.
And what you're seeing out of this generation going in, they're trying to find that passion, that interest, and my beat the drum is saying all work is honorable. To your point,
right? All
work is honorable, but you got to find purpose around that, and it starts with purpose. And then if you engage with a company where you connect with the people, you're going to be okay.
Yeah. Yep.
But you got to keep working on that.
Yeah, I agree. How important do you think? And this is kind of a loaded question, but how important do you think, like the atmosphere in the office or in the workplace, just as far as furniture and desks and chairs and carpet and ceilings and lights and paint? And
you're probably asking the wrong guy, because I don't connect with that. I mean,
yeah.
my one of the things we measure in that driving forces assessment
Right.
is around aesthetics.
Yeah.
And so some people are more objective. As long as there's function, they're good. Other
Right.
people are more feng shui, harmonious, and I've heard that said, but where did I just read some research? So some of that is kind of getting a little bit out of vogue, but it's still nice. It's a nice to have.
Yeah.
But it does not replace the intentional connections you have with the people that are on your
Right.
team.
I would agree with that.
And so when you talk about people, we don't have any whiteboards, but there's one thing called invitation. Are we connecting with our people?
Right.
We call it invitations. It's a part of our 5 pillars of a prioritized leader solution that we provide in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And so you have invitation, and there's say a 10-point scale. At the high, you have high invitation where we're connecting with people, and low invitation where we're not doing that. On the vertical axis would be challenge. You have high challenge or low challenge on the back end.
Right.
So you're looking for high connection, high invitation,
Right.
high challenge. But if you just have challenge and no invitation or connecting with others, it's a military school. The beatings will continue until morale improves around here.
Right. Right. Yeah.
People don't want to stay.
Sure.
If you have no challenge, no invitation, now you have bored, you have complacency, you have turnover, nothing's going on.
Right.
If you have just invitation and no challenge, you have cozy.
Yeah.
You have, well, it's nice here, I like everybody, but I'm not stretching. I'm not looking for that next lion or whatever the case might be, next goal to strive for.
Right.
But if you have
Don't say lion to kill.
I,
People won't.
Did
like
you hear
that.
me start saying that? I stopped. Please cut that out of it.
Yeah, PETA will be all over us. Come on,
dude.
Brian.
That was not my.
We're not killing lions here. No,
Now I'm off my message.
no.
You have to
you
have
laugh.
high invitation, have
Yeah.
a high challenge, and if you don't have those two,
Yeah.
you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You're in trouble.
No, and that's awesome insight. And I've always been a person that thinks that, the niceties attract people. But then after, listening to you, you could have a total piece of shit office with really, really good people all on the same page.
Yeah.
And you're going to attract the right people. They may come in and go, toilet needs to be cleaned. But everyone around here is really nice, and everyone has equal goals, and they're out there trying to, not kill lions together and move on with, trying to accomplish things together. So I would have to agree that that's way more important than, chandeliers and
Right.
stress rooms.
Here's I heard this again going back. I mentioned Thompson Mentor, guy named John Sestine, who was also a mentor of mine.
Yeah.
And he would say it multiple times. I'd rather be in a bad deal with great people than a great deal with bad people.
Yeah, it's true.
And I've lived that for a long, and I've heard it says, man, when you walk into an organization, and I've seen toxic companies, and they've got all the great cool stuff, but there's something missing in the special sauce of that organization, and then they wonder why they have a turnover problem.
Well, and I've been involved with deals that they're like, oh man, I don't even know, how are we going to make money doing this? And everyone sits down, and it may just be damage control.
Yeah.
And everyone sits down and are like, okay, we realize that we're in this together and we're not going to make any money, but let's be friends at the end of it.
Yeah.
But I've also been involved in deals where there's money on the table and everyone's trying to cut somebody else's throat to make more money.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I'm out. You know, it's not worth it anymore. You know, for me, I am very guilty of being a salesperson that was very, 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 very money driven when I was younger. It's all that mattered to me. I didn't care about anything else. Like, I would work 7 days a week, as many hours as I could, to make as much money as I could. And I lost track of so many different things. And then once I got to the point where the money was less important than just the lifestyle, then you have complete freedom.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really matter how much money you make, but if you can do what you want to do when you want to do it and people are happy around you, then to me, that's more valuable than, you know, everyone making you know, you get into the boiler room type of talks where everyone's driving a Ferrari and a Lamborghini to work, but the guy next to you will cut your throat in a second to make more money.
Yeah.
And it all goes down and everyone's in jail at the end of it.
And that goes back to purpose, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What are we in business for? Why are we doing what we do? And it goes back to your comments around. I've got a young man that I work with who sells rocks for a living, and he's
literally rocks.
It says, you know, working with architects, builders. Okay. So he's selling rocks, and he's got a territory from Central Ohio to the Michigan border, and he's trying to find meaning and purpose in there. And I says, there's meaning and purpose to serve other people.
Yeah.
But, you know, he's working with guys who are going to, hey, you're going to have a beautiful landscape backyard and you need a certain stone or something on your house or a building and trying to find meaning in that and keep searching for the meaning. But again, at the end of the day, if you serve others, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
You're going to be okay.
It's true. And we kind of sell rocks, right?
Something like that, right? Well, and, you know, I've kind of sat back and I'm letting you guys kind of go. I mean, some of the main things I feel like I'm just listening, you guys are hitting on, obviously with culture, definitely starts at the top and how you feel when you walk in the door.
Yeah.
But it's all about the vision and how is that vision said to your employees and is it transparent? Because I feel like that's one of the things you guys have really hit on the most. It's great. You know, you got to be able to share, hey, you're doing this, but why are you doing this? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like well, you know, me and Dustin talk about it all the time. Yeah. He's great with me with that. And I think it matters. You know, you want to come to work for that person. It's not coming in with a military style. It's coming, you know, so that's awesome. One thing you kept hitting on is the ruthless hiring. Just explain a little bit of how many times you consider a ruthless hiring situation. Is it 5 phone calls? Is it 10? Like, what would you consider a ruthless
what does
hiring?
that look like?
Well, I tell you that I've seen it done many different ways. Mm-hmm. So I don't dare to say that here is the special formula that you should follow. I think in today's marketplace, you can be very data driven. And so once you find out exactly what you need, back up as far as how far you need to go to get real clarity around how you're going to go ahead and uncover that in the process. And going slow and right versus fast and wrong is really important. So I wish I could say this is it, but I small investment firm, and I've seen and I didn't build it. He just shares with me, hey, by the time I get to using the assessment, he has a whole bunch of other stuff that he's doing, from phone interviews to face interviews, to repeated face interviews, to meeting other people in the office, to the assessment part of the process, which I get involved in the back end. And I look at what he's asking and why he's asking it, and building those connections with those people. the challenge with all that is probably the biggest thing is to stay objective in the process. Do not get emotionally tied to somebody, which always seems to happen, because that's my person.
Yep.
You say, well, tell me why you think they're the person. Help me understand why you think they're worth making an investment and to run an assessment on them. And when I hear, well, it just felt right, it's not enough. Tell me more. It just felt right. When I hear it just felt right, they probably from a style standpoint were very similar. If you think about interviewing, if you're interviewing somebody who's got a style very similar to yours, the conversation rolls, it ebbs, it flows, it just feels comfortable. When someone's totally wired differently than you, it takes energy to connect.
Right.
And so those are like, well, I'm not so sure. I said, well, let's go back to the job. And if the job could talk, what is it saying that is required to be successful in the role? And that gives you more clarity than what you felt in the interview process. And if you have that job talk laid out, here's what we need from a style standpoint. Here's what we need from a motivator standpoint. Here are some 5 to 7 competencies there needs to be a high degree of mastery of. Stay objective, you'll be fine.
Awesome.
No, I love it. And I've made the emotional mistake more than one time. Because you get emotionally tied to somebody. You're like, I really like the engineer bro, it goes back to that. And if you start making emotional decisions, you sometimes make the wrong one.
You've got a lack of clarity. There's some degree of distortion in your ability to see this person objectively. Mm-hmm. And if the job could talk, what would it say?
Right. I'm kind of speechless off of that one, so I like it.
That being said, I've hit on everything for today. I want to thank you, Bryan, for being with us.
Yeah, is there anything else that you want to talk about? We've been pounding you with questions.
Yeah, anything new and exciting that you got going on you'd like to share before we kind of call it an episode?
Well, you caught me off guard with that question.
Good.
I don't think I have anything to share.
Awesome.
If this is going out to people in the Central Ohio market, and people are looking to sales professionals, one of the things that we've become more and more passionate about, once a month for sales professionals to plug in, we have a connection breakfast that myself and another gentleman started about 3-4 years ago now, Ken Lazar of Ability Professionals. And there was nowhere for sales professionals to plug in and just hear a great story, a great message on sales. And so we have sales coaches come in. We've got sales leaders come in. We have business owners come in and share their story. It's over breakfast. We bribe you with eggs and bacon. It's usually held at the Dublin Chamber, but we've had Rhett Reichert speak. And so we did that at IGS Energy because we had about 90 people there. We've had the VP of sales for Cardinal, so we had to do it at Cardinal. We had about 70, 80 people there. So if this is going out to any sales professionals who are looking for a place to plug in, I think the chamber charges them $15. It's a place to connect and network with other sales professionals and get different perspective and flavor. So that's a plug for something that's of value to people that we work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dublin Chamber's very close to where we're at today. So just right downtown, Old Dublin, right?
Yeah, it's right in Old Dublin. With this whole nonsense we have going on in the country right now with the virus, we're not sure what we're going to do in April, but we're rolling.
Awesome. Just have kegs and eggs, Corona, hand sanitizer, and kegs and eggs,
and toilet paper.
Nobody can find toilet paper now, so I'm not sure that's one of the symptoms, but somebody I don't even know why people started buying up all the toilet paper, but apparently, as of today, there is no more toilet paper.
That is very true.
Yeah,
and that and sanitizer and what else did I hear? Just anyways.
Yeah,
let's get off that subject. It's exhausting.
Yeah, but it's interesting times. Everyone's talking about it. I know that there's some guys that I've done business with that they've had entire podcasts just about the coronavirus and everything. So we laugh about it. Hopefully it's not, overly serious. Yeah. I know that there's, as of this morning, I think 5 confirmed cases in Ohio. So 5 confirmed. Somebody said they think that there's 100,000 cases, but they have no data to support that. But hopefully it doesn't get out of control, and we can still laugh about it in a few weeks. So
everybody get up and go to work.
yeah, get up,
However
go to
you do
work, stay
that,
driven.
and stay away from the news.
Yeah,
Where was this time off when I was in college? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. Yeah, all my teacher friends they're loving it because they're getting paid and they don't have to work. And I just roll my eyes. So I'm like, okay, well, we'll be back at work tomorrow.
Yeah.
You have fun with your fake vacation.
They'll be back at work in June, part of July because of it.
Yep.
The high school teachers.
And it is kind of crappy for athletes. You know, like my son just had their lacrosse season. It's not canceled, but they're not allowed in the gym. They're not allowed training. All games are canceled now. NCAA. I mean, all that stuff is just canceled,
NBA,
and it's pretty sad, especially for those senior athletes.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. I coached wrestling in the area up until this year since I was about 25 or 6, and the district tournament was last week. State tournament was supposed to be this weekend, and where I coached, there's a young man who's a senior. It was a great success story. He got out. He's going down there, and obviously mom and dad. It's just a great moment for the family. And sorry we can't do it.
Yeah.
Ohio State has 2 kids that are seniors, exceptional athletes, great athletes. One's here from Ohio, one's from Pennsylvania, and potentially win a national title, and didn't not going to get that chance.
Yeah, it is heartbreaking because it's a once in a lifetime.
Oh,
we always talk about once in a lifetime opportunities, but that's a serious once. I mean, hey, we'll never get that opportunity ever again.
Yeah, I mean,
it's sad.
It's my one son's coaching at the high school level where I coached for a long time, and my other son's coaching at the collegiate level, and he's at a Division II school, actually my alma mater, West Liberty over in West Virginia. So he's helping out over there, and they were still having the D2s, and he was driving out to Sioux Falls, South Dakota yesterday or the day before. He got as far as Champaign, Illinois. This was the day was this yesterday? I think it was yesterday. And they pulled the plug, turn your car around. We're not having the tournament.
Yeah.
So you got kids over there that are his buddy, his collegiate buddy. He's older now, but his freshman roommate made it. And, so it ended up, I'm sure they were partying last night.
Well, at least that's off on a semi-positive note.
Right.
But go check out Bryan's website. Luke will get a link up on our social media, so it's easy to get to, and phone number and all that fun stuff. And any questions that you have, feel free to email info@McMillanCo, MFG.com as well, and we can forward them on to Bryan. Check out our social media. Do you have social media, Bryan?
Bryan Driscoll, look me up on LinkedIn.
Perfect. All right, man. Well, thanks for coming in. It's always always a pleasure. So
thanks, guys. This was fun. First time I've ever done this. So for all the mistakes in there, make sure you have a great guy to edit it.
Yeah. Well, we have that guy. This is only our 4th time doing it, so I think it's going pretty well, and I'm learning a lot. That's the fun part for me too. So thank you so much.
Thanks for the experience.
Thank you.